The sun of Aurelia rose slowly over the shining towers of the capital city. It touched the grand square with golden light. Where yesterday thousands had stood to witness something unforgettable, not a war, not a coronation, but a peaceful call for truth, Ethan Cole, the accidental groom, now found himself at the center of change. He stood beside Calthera on the palace balcony as the new dawn began. Below, the city was quiet, but there was a new energy in the air. A hopeful one. "You did it," Calthera said, her voice soft. Ethan looked at her. "We did it. You believed in the people." "I just didn't fall off the stage?" She smiled. "You also didn't run away. That counts." Later that morning, a special council session was called. Not in secret, not behind closed doors. This time it was open. Broadcast across every corner of the empire, the old council members sat around the great stone circle. Lord Draxon was still there, but his tone had changed. He no longer barked. Orders. He listened. Carefully, Calthera stood to speak. "For centuries," she began, "our empire has grown strong, but it has also grown afraid of change. The prophecy was hidden. The truth was buried. But truth always finds light." She looked around the room, calm but firm. "We are not here to destroy the empire. We are here to guide it toward a future built on honesty and trust, not fear." Some nobles nodded. Others stayed silent. But no one interrupted her. Then Ethan stood. He cleared his throat. "I didn't grow up on this world. I don't know your history like you do. But I know something about choices. I had a choice when I crashed into that wedding. I could have run. I almost did." A few quiet laughs passed through the crowd. But then I met Calthera, and I saw that even a world full of stars can feel lonely when no one is willing to speak the truth, so I stayed. He looked at everyone. "I'm not here to rule anything. I'm not here to wear a crown. But if my voice can help people trust again, I'll use it." There was silence. Then, slowly, applause. Not just polite applause, real, honest approval. That evening, after the meeting, Ethan walked through the royal gardens. It still felt strange being in a place with floating lights, singing plants, and trees that whispered in the breeze. But somehow it had started to feel like home. Calthera joined him. "You've surprised everyone," she said. "Even myself," Ethan admitted. "But I have a question." "Go on." "Was the whole bond of fate real, or just a trick by your advisors?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she led him to a quiet part of the garden where two trees grew side by side, their glowing roots gently touching. "In ancient times," she said, "our people believed the universe chose pairs across time, distance, even species. They called it the bond of stars. It was rare, and it couldn't be forced." She looked at him. "Maybe your crash wasn't an accident after all." Ethan laughed. "You're saying the universe matched us?" She smiled. "I'm saying I don't believe in coincidence anymore." They stood silently as the trees shimmered. Beside them, their light glowing a little brighter. The next weeks passed quickly. Across the empire, reforms began. The truth from the crystal was shared freely. The people were invited into decision-making councils. Even planets that had felt ignored were now being heard. Ethan traveled with Calthera to meet with citizens, listen to their concerns, and share his story. Some were skeptical. Others were inspired. He told them all the same thing. "I didn't choose to be part of this world. But now that I am, I'll do my best to protect it with honesty, not power." One evening, Calthera entered the ship hangar where Ethan was checking an old Varelian cruiser. "You're fixing it again?" she asked. "Old habits," he grinned. "Back on Earth, I fixed cargo ships. Now it's royal transports." She leaned on the railing. "There's a diplomatic mission to the moon of Solari tomorrow. Want to come with me?" "I'd follow you to the edge of the stars," he said, then paused. "Too much?" "A little," she smiled. "But sweet." Then she grew serious. "You've given people something real, Ethan. Hope. Even my advisors respect you now." He raised an eyebrow. "Even the one who wanted to feed me to the sky sharks?" She only suggested it once. They both laughed. Then she handed him a small ring, simple, silver, etched with the bond symbol. "This is not part of the prophecy. It's my choice." No pressure. Ethan looked at the ring for a long moment. Does this mean I can finally say I'm not just the accidental groom? She nodded. Now you'd be the chosen one. By me, he smiled and took the ring. I'd crash every wedding in the galaxy if it meant ending up here again. Months later, on the same balcony where everything began, Ethan stood watching the stars. Beside him, Kael'thera rested her head on his shoulder, far across space. A new beacon had been lit, not a distress signal this time. A symbol of peace, calling out to other civilizations beyond Varelia, inviting them to listen, to share, to begin again. And somewhere, deep in the cosmos, other worlds watched and wondered about the human who had once crashed a wedding, not knowing he was meant to change the galaxy. Cold wind blew across the frozen planet as Ethan Cole walked outside the small ship, his boots crunching on the icy ground. Above him, stars twinkled, but the sky also held the soft shimmer of energy fields from a nearby satellite. They were being watched. Kael'thera stepped out behind him, pulling her dark cloak around her. You're quiet today, she said softly. Ethan looked up. I'm just thinking. I never planned to get involved in any of this. Now I'm being hunted, flying through storms and listening to ancient crystals. You could still run, she said, testing his answer. He turned to her and smiled. Yeah, but then who would crash your next royal event? Kael'thera smiled back. You're braver than you look. Later that day they met with someone Kael'thera trusted, an old friend and former palace scholar named Sen. He had been hiding on this icy moon since the council removed him for unsettling beliefs. Now he lived in a cave warmed by geothermal vents and filled with books, datapads, and glowing maps. You brought the crystal? Sen asked with wide eyes. Kael'thera nodded and handed it over. Sen placed it on a scanner and watched as symbols lit up around the room. So the full prophecy is out now, he said. The council won't like that. Ethan leaned forward. We need help, people who will listen. People who want peace, not control, Sen stroked his chin. There are those who've waited for a sign. If the princess truly believes in this bond and the human stands beside her, they might rise. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Rise? Like fight? Not war, Kael'thera said, but unity. If we show the people the truth, they'll decide. For themselves, Sen nodded. Then we must return to the capital not in secret, but in front of all. That's bold, Ethan said, also very dangerous. Kael'thera looked at him. Sometimes truth is the loudest weapon. With Sen's help, they sent encrypted messages across the galaxy. Ethan watched as replies came back short. Signals of hope, flashes of support from secret corners of the empire. Scientists, teachers, workers, and even a few low-ranking nobles responded. We've started something, Ethan said, amazed. Just by showing up, Sen nodded. That's how change always begins. They began planning, a gathering, a peaceful assembly in the grand square of Varelia, open to the people, open to the council, a chance to speak truth without weapons. But we only get one shot, Kael'thera said. If the council shuts it down, it's over. Ethan looked at the old flight controls in their borrowed ship. Then I guess we better make it loud. On the day of the gathering, their small ship entered Varelian airspace under a temporary cease order. The council, unable to ignore the growing public interest, agreed to let the event happen but sent guards to surround the square. Ethan wore a simple dark suit, no crown, no medals. Just himself. Kael'thera wore the traditional robes of her house, but added a symbol from the prophecy on her shoulder, a glowing circle broken by a streak of light. The grand square filled with thousands, some cheering, some curious and others silent, unsure. Drones floated overhead, recording everything. Ethan stepped forward first. His voice was calm, unsure at first, but steady. I didn't come here to be a leader, he said. I didn't even know this place existed a month ago. I'm just a human pilot, but I came because I saw a signal. Someone needed help. That's it. People listened. Then I learned about this world. I met your princess. I crashed a wedding, he smiled, and somehow became part of something bigger. He looked at Kael'thera. I don't understand all your rules, your history, your noble houses, But I do understand honesty. And I know when something isn't fair. He held up the crystal. This prophecy doesn't belong to one house or one council. It belongs to everyone. Kael'thera stepped beside him. Her voice was strong. My people, I have served you with respect and faith, but the council has hidden truths from us. Not to protect us, but to protect their control? Gasps filled the air. Change is not the end, she said. It is a beginning. The prophecy does not bring ruin. It brings choice? And I choose to stand with this man, not because of his strength, but because of his heart. The crowd stirred. Some clapped. Others whispered. Then, from the edge of the crowd, Lord Draxon arrived, surrounded by armored guards. This gathering is illegal, he shouted. These two are fugitives. The guards stepped forward. Ethan held up his hand. No weapons, he said loudly. We're not your enemies. We just want to speak. The crowd moved. People formed a circle around Ethan and Kael'thera. Standing between them and the guards, Lord Draxon hesitated. You turn against your leaders? He asked the crowd. An old woman stepped forward. We're not turning. We're choosing. There's a difference. More voices joined. Let them speak. Truth matters. No more lies. The guards looked at Draxon, unsure. He scowled but didn't give the order. Kael'thera raised her voice. This is not rebellion. This is reunion, a return to truth. Ethan stood beside her, surprised at how natural it felt. In that moment, the people didn't see a stranger from another planet. They saw hope, later, back in a quiet room within the palace, now under watch. From both nobles and commoners alike, Kael'thera turned to Ethan. You handled that well? She said, I just didn't faint. That's good enough for me. She smiled. The Empire is changing, she said. And whether you like it or not, you're part of it. Ethan laughed. Yeah, all because I answered a distress signal. He looked at her, serious now. I'm not leaving. I didn't ask you to, she replied gently. Outside, the stars shine brighter than ever. Ethan Cole sat on a balcony high above the glowing city of Aurelia, watching alien stars blink in strange patterns. Ships flew silently between silver towers. Somewhere below, people were still celebrating the bond of fate between a human pilot and their princes, but Ethan didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a tourist lost in someone else's movie. Behind him, Kael'thera stepped onto the balcony, holding 2 cups of warm starfruit tea. She handed one to him. Still thinking about today's fight? She asked softly. Yeah, Ethan said, taking the cup. And everything else? It's like I've fallen into a story that's too big for me. She sat beside him. You didn't ask for this, but you're handling it better than most nobles would. He smiled weakly. I still feel like I'm faking it. Kael'thera looked serious. You're not. The council respects you now. But that makes you a threat to some. Ethan frowned. A threat? I don't even know what I'm doing. That's why they're afraid, she said. You act without selfish goals. That makes you unpredictable. And in politics, that's dangerous. The next morning, Ethan woke to loud knocking on his chamber door. A royal guard entered, followed by a young officer holding a glowing tablet. Message for the bonded guest? The officer said, handing Ethan the device. A video began to play. It was a recording, security footage, showing someone sneaking into the royal archives late at night. The figure was tall, fast, and careful. Then the video zoomed in. It was Kael'thera. Ethan stared in disbelief. That's not possible, the guard spoke. Your bondmate has stolen a classified item from the archive, a sacred crystal. The council demands answers. Ethan stood. There must be a mistake. But deep down, a strange worry began to grow. Ethan found Kael'thera in a hidden garden behind the palace, sitting beside a pool of glowing water. You took something, he said, trying to stay calm. She didn't deny it. Yes, why? Kael'thera looked up. Because the prophecy, it isn't what they think. Ethan blinked. You said it was old and symbolic. It is, she said. But the full version, the part hidden from the public, says that the Chosen One will also bring the end of the current empire. A rebirth, a change. That's why the crystal matters. It holds the rest of the prophecy. Ethan sat down, his mind spinning. So they only told the part that made them feel safe? She nodded. They hid the part about change, about danger, but I had to know the truth. I needed to see if you really were meant to bring transformation. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. Do I? I don't feel very powerful. Maybe not in strength, she said, but in choices, in truth. He looked at her, confused but moved. What do we do now? We read the crystal together, but first we have to escape the palace. That night, with the help of Keothera loyal guard, the two disguised themselves in plain worker clothes and slipped through the servant tunnels beneath the palace. It felt like a spy movie, except Ethan's boots were too big, and he tripped twice. They reached a hidden ship docked at a private platform. Keothera's guard, a sharp-eyed female named Vexa, handed Ethan a device. This will decode the crystal, she said. But once you use it, the council will know. Of course they will, Ethan muttered. Why can't anything be easy? They lifted off quietly, flying into the shadows of the Varelian sky. They landed on a small moon, far from the capital. Inside a quiet cave filled with glowing moss, Keothera placed the crystal on a scanner. Ethan activated the device. A soft hum filled the air. The crystal lit up and projected symbols in the air, spinning slowly like stars. A voice spoke in ancient Varelian, then shifted to translation mode. From a world of fire and blue skies shall come the stranger. He will not lead with fear, but with honesty. His bond with the royal line will break chains unseen. The Empire shall not fall, but transform. Ethan sat in silence. That doesn't sound like destruction, Keothera nodded. It sounds like hope, but to those in power, change feels like destruction. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed outside. Vexa rushed in. Council scouts found us. We have to move. Back aboard the ship, Ethan flew while Keothera secured the crystal. They dodged a patrol ship and entered a stormy atmosphere. Lightning flashed across the sky. Ethan's hands moved fast over the controls. Hang on, he shouted. The ship rocked violently. Keothera held onto her seat. You said you were a delivery pilot. I never said I was a safe one. With a final burst of power, the ship broke through the storm and vanished into an asteroid field. The patrol lost them, for now, hours later, in a quiet orbit above a frozen planet. Ethan and Keothera sat in silence. We can't go back to the palace yet, she said. They'll arrest us both. Ethan looked at her. So what now? Are we rebels? Keothera gave a small smile. Maybe we're truth-bringers, he chuckled. That sounds a lot cooler than accidental groom. Keothera looked at him seriously. You didn't just crash a wedding, Ethan. You may have started a new chapter of Varelian history. He looked out at the stars. Guess we better write a good one. Ethan Cole stood in front of a tall, glowing door with cold sweat on his forehead. His robe itched. His boots were too tight. And he hadn't slept much the night before. Are you sure we can't just sneak out the back? He asked quietly. Princess Keothera stood beside him, calm and steady. No, if we run now, the noble houses will see it as betrayal. Ethan sighed. I was hoping you'd say yes, honestly. The doors opened with a soft hum. Before them lay the Grand Council chamber, a circular room filled with alien leaders, glowing thrones and floating symbols above each seat. Each noble house had one representative. Some had horns. Others had wings. Some were made of light. Others looked like stone. In the middle of the chamber, a round platform hovered. The truth circle. That's where we stand, Keothera said, walking forward. Ethan followed, whispering, Why does it feel like I'm going to be grilled like a sandwich? When they reached the center, a tall alien with 4 arms and silver skin stood. Up, he was Lord Draxon, leader of House Vester, and not a fan of Ethan. Let the trial of truth begin, Draxon announced. Let the stranger prove his worth. Ethan raised his hand like a student in school. Sorry, what exactly am I being tested for? To see if you are truly the chosen one of the prophecy, Draxon said. We must know if the sky. Stranger is more than a lucky visitor, Keothera leaned over. Stay calm, answer their questions carefully. The first question came from a feathered woman with glowing green eyes. What is your homeworld's greatest strength? Ethan thought for a moment. Humans aren't the smartest or the fastest or the strongest, but we adapt, we learn, we survive. A few council members nodded, impressed. Others simply stared. Next. A short alien with a jelly-like body floated forward. What is your skill, stranger? Ethan took a deep breath. I'm a pilot. I fly solo, I fix ships, I deliver cargo. I don't fight wars or lead armies. A murmur spread across the chamber. Then, you're no warrior, Lord Draxon said with a smirk. What use is a pilot to an empire? Ethan looked straight at him. I didn't come here to lead anyone. I just saw a distress signal and came to help. I do that because it's the right thing to do, not because someone tells me to. Answer made Kael'thera smile. A tall alien with one eye leaned forward. Would you sacrifice your freedom for peace? Ethan hesitated. That was the real question, wasn't it? He had no plan to stay, no plan to become a royal figure. But if walking through this fake marriage kept people from starting a war, I would stay. Ethan said slowly, if it means saving innocent lives. Silence filled the chamber, then a soft bell rang, the official tone that ended the questioning. Outside the chamber, Ethan collapsed onto a bench and groaned. How did I do? Kael'thera handed him a drink. You told the truth. That's all they wanted. Ethan took a sip and frowned. This tastes like spicy soap. She laughed for the first time that day. It's considered an honor drink. Well, I'm honored and confused. Before they could say more, one of Kael'thera's advisors ran up to them. Your Highness, trouble. House Vester has launched a challenge. What kind of challenge? Kael'thera asked sharply. The advisor looked nervous. A trial of action. They say the human must prove his loyalty by facing a task. Ethan sighed. Of course they do. Because talking wasn't enough, Kael'thera turned to him. You don't have to accept this. It's an old rule, rarely used. But if you refuse, they'll say you're afraid. I am afraid, Ethan said. I'm afraid of whatever crazy thing they want me to do. Still, deep inside, he knew he couldn't back down. Not if it meant protecting Kael'thera and keeping the peace she fought for. All right, he said. What's the task? An hour later, Ethan stood in a glass arena under the open sky. Floating drones filmed the scene. Guests watched from above. Excited. In the center of the arena was a machine, a training robot shaped like a giant insect. It was 3 meters tall and covered in metal armor. Defeat the challenge bot, said the announcer. Show your courage and mind. Ethan looked at the weapon they gave him, a simple shock rod. Great, he muttered. I brought a stick to fight a tank, the buzzer sounded. The robot charged. Ethan rolled to the side just in time, barely avoiding a blast of energy. The crowd gasped. He got up, ran, jumped behind the bot, and hit it in the back. Nothing. It's like hitting a wall with a spoon? But Ethan wasn't trying to fight like a warrior. He was thinking like a mechanic. He saw tiny vents on the robot's side, cooling units. That's it, he whispered. He baited the robot into overheating, dodging attacks while it burned more energy. When it paused to cool, Ethan jammed his rod into the vent. Sparks flew. The robot froze. Then fell. The arena exploded with cheers. Later that evening, back in their private room, Kael'thera handed Ethan a medal. You impressed them, she said. Even House Vester. Ethan stared at the medal. I thought I was going to die, but you didn't, she said. You used your head. That matters. Ethan sat down, tired but smiling. So, am I still your fake husband? Kael'thera looked thoughtful. For now, but things are changing. You've become something more to them, a symbol, and maybe something more to me too, Ethan blinked. That sounds serious, she nodded. It is, as stars blinked outside the window. Both of them sat in silence, wondering what came next, because this wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was becoming destiny. Ethan Cole stood next to Princess Kael'thera on a shining platform, wearing a borrowed robe that didn't quite fit and a confused look that did. Around them, alien guests cheered and clapped. Music filled the air. Cameras floated nearby, capturing Every second of the strange ceremony, he leaned toward Kael'thera and whispered, "Are we actually getting married right now?" "Not legally," she whispered back with a slight smile. "This is just the public part. The formal agreement comes after." "That's when I panic," Ethan muttered. Kael'thera chuckled softly, and the crowd cheered louder, thinking it was part of some sweet moment. Ethan forced a smile, waving awkwardly to the cameras. After what felt like hours of chanting, glowing lights, and flower dust in the air, the ceremony ended. Two guards stepped forward and gently motioned for the couple to exit. Kael'thera walked ahead like she had done this 100 times. Ethan followed, still trying to keep his robe from falling off his shoulder. They entered a quiet private chamber filled with soft cushions, fresh fruit, and glowing stones on the walls. Ethan collapsed onto one of the cushions with a sigh. "Okay," he said. "Can we talk now? What just happened out there?" Kael'thera sat across from him and picked up a red fruit. "We just completed the public bonding ceremony. It satisfies the Empire's tradition, but I'm not your real groom." Ethan said, "I'm not even part of your species. There has to be a way to undo this." She nodded. "Yes, but it's not simple." Ethan rubbed his face. "Of course not." Kael'thera explained that the Varelian Empire followed old prophecies and customs. Hundreds of years ago, a legend said that a stranger from the stars would come and join with the royal line. A beacon would be sent, and when the right person answered it, the marriage would begin. "So, you accidentally sent the beacon?" Ethan asked. "No," she said. "It was sent on purpose by the High Council. They wanted to fulfill the legend and bring peace between the noble houses. But I never believed it would actually work. And then I showed up." Kael'thera gave a small nod. "You walked right into the ritual ship at the exact hour, wearing the exact colors. The council believes the prophecy is true. They see you as a sign." Ethan leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "This is insane." "Agreed," she said. "But if we break the ceremony now, the noble houses will think the prophecy was faked. Some will be insulted, others will call for war. My people cannot afford a civil conflict right now." Ethan looked at her. "So what do? We play along," Kael'thera said calmly. "At least until we find a safe way to stop it." Ethan sighed. "You really think people will believe I'm some chosen space hero?" "They already do," she said, showing him a screen. A news broadcast was playing, showing clips of Ethan during the ceremony. The headline said, "Sky Stranger Fulfills Starbond Prophecy." He groaned. "Great, I'm famous for something I didn't even do." Soon a group of royal attendants entered. One of them, a translator robot, floated forward and bowed, Groom being Ethan Cole. The robot said in a cheerful tone, "You are invited to the bonding banquet." "Please do not resist," Ethan blinked. "That's a creepy way to say dinner." Kael'thera stood and offered her hand. "Shall we?" "Just smile and nod, eat something, say as little as possible." "I can do that," Ethan said. "I think." The banquet hall was massive. 100 tables floated in the air like slow-moving platforms. Bright lights danced on the ceiling like stars. Guests sat in elegant robes, sipping glowing drinks and eating strange but delicious food. Ethan sat beside Kael'thera at the center table. Every few minutes, someone came up to greet him. Nobles, generals, scholars, all trying to speak to him in their own language. He just smiled, nodded, and said, "Thank you, a lot." At one point, an old alien with 4 tentacles and big eyes offered him a glowing blue flower. Ethan didn't know what it meant, so he gave the alien a thumbs up. The alien clapped all 4 tentacles happily and danced away. "What did I just agree to?" Ethan asked Kael'thera. "You probably promised to visit his garden planet." "Perfect," he sighed. Later that night, Ethan and Kael'thera returned to the private chamber again. The guards waited outside, giving them space. Ethan sat on a cushion and looked at her seriously. "This is getting out of hand. Everyone thinks I'm some kind of hero. What happens if they find out I'm not?" Kael'thera sat beside him. "Then they may turn against me too. They will think I brought shame to the throne." "You don't deserve that," Ethan said. "You're just trying to protect your people." She looked at him, surprised by his kind words. And you're just a cargo pilot who came to help a stranger. Ethan smiled weakly. Worst rescue mission ever. They both laughed quietly, then Kalthira stood and looked at him. Seriously. There is more. Tomorrow, we must attend the council meeting. The noble houses will test your worthiness. We must be ready. Ethan groaned again. Please tell me it doesn't involve dancing. Kalthira smiled. No, but it might involve public speaking. Ethan grabbed a pillow and covered his face. I crashed a wedding, became a fake husband, and now I have to give a speech. I want my money back. But deep inside, Ethan knew he couldn't run. Not yet. These people believed in him. Kalthira was smart, brave, and stuck in this mess. Just like him. If he could help, even a little, maybe it was worth staying, just for a while. Ethan Cole wasn't the kind of man who looked for trouble. In fact, he avoided it like bad space food. He was a freelance pilot, ran small cargo jobs between moons, stations, and sometimes unregistered trade posts. Quiet work. Boring work. That's how he liked it. So when his ship, the Starhound, picked up a strange distress beacon near the gas giant Melora 7, Ethan thought it was just another old ship that needed towing or salvage. Easy credits? No questions asked. He dropped out of warp and found the source quickly, a large, beautiful cruiser floating silently in orbit. It looked untouched by time, shining with gold lines and silver trim. Way too fancy for the outer zones. Must be a private yacht, Ethan muttered to himself. Still, a beacon was a beacon. He grabbed his toolkit, strapped on his scanner, and entered the docking port. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. No signs of damage. No floating bottas. No fire or alarms. Just clean, glowing corridors with smooth walls and soft lights. Everything smelled like flowers and fresh metal. Weird, Ethan walked carefully, his boots echoing on the polished floor. Suddenly, doors ahead of him opened with a soft chime. Two tall aliens, guards, from the looks of their armor, stood. On either side, they stared at him. He froze. Hi, Ethan said, raising his hand awkwardly. I picked up your distress signal. Everything okay? The guards didn't answer. Instead, one tapped something on his wrist. Moments later, a team of servants and officials swarmed out from nearby rooms. A short, green-skinned alien in long robes stepped forward. He had 4 eyes and a nervous smile. You have arrived at last, he said in perfect, if stiff, English. Ethan blinked. Arrive for what? The alien didn't answer. He just clapped his hands. Suddenly, music played. Lights above changed color, now soft pink and gold. The air smelled even more like flowers. What is going on? Ethan asked. The alien gestured. Politely, please, noble one, the ceremony is ready. We must prepare you for the joining, the ... Ethan said, backing up slightly. The alien turned to the guards and whispered. The guards stepped forward gently, but firmly. Before Ethan could protest, they guided him down the hall. Within minutes, he found himself in a large room filled with alien guests. Dozens of species, all dressed in bright, formal clothing. The ceiling was glass, showing the planet's swirling clouds below. A long path of glowing crystal stretched to a high platform, and at the end of the path stood the most beautiful alien woman Ethan had ever seen. She was tall, strong, and regal. Her skin shimmered like pearls. Her eyes were violet, calm but sharp. Her gown flowed like liquid gold. And she wore a crown of silver stars. She smiled softly when she saw Ethan. There. You are, she said. Her voice was smooth like music. My betrothed has finally come, Ethan froze. Wait, what? The green-robed alien from earlier stepped beside him again. You must not delay, noble groom. The joining ceremony cannot begin without you. I'm not ... I think there's been a mistake, Ethan stammered. I just came to check the beacon. The signal was activated as the ancient custom demands, the alien said firmly. It called the skyborn stranger, the chosen one from beyond the stars. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Everyone was watching him, hundreds of eyes. Cameras hovered in the air. Music played softly in the background. The princess walked slowly down the platform steps and approached him. Her guards moved aside as she stepped close. I expected someone taller, she said with a slight smile. Ethan laughed nervously. I expected ... They stared at each other for a long moment. I am Princess Calthera of the Verelium Empire, she said. Are you truly not the one summoned? I'm just a pilot, Ethan said quietly. I didn't mean to crash your wedding. She studied him. Yet the customs say the groom shall arrive by signal from the stars alone and unguarded, wearing the colors of the sky. She glanced at his blue jacket and gray cargo pants. It fits too well. It's a coincidence, Ethan said. A weird one, but still. I believe you, she said at last. But no one else will, he sighed. Of course not. She leaned closer and whispered, Play along for now. If you run, it will be seen as a betrayal. There are politics at work you do not understand. I'm really good at running. Actually, Ethan whispered back. She smiled again. So am I, but sometimes standing still is the harder path. The ceremony began moments later. Drums echoed, lights danced. Priests chanted in a strange language. Ethan stood beside Calthera, heart pounding. He had no idea what he was doing. But if he messed this up, it sounded like a war could start. Or worse, they'd actually marry him to an alien princess at the same time. Something about her didn't feel dangerous. She was calm, honest, and clearly stuck in this situation too. Maybe, Ethan thought, they could figure a way out together, or at least survive the party.